One under the same name. Hey! Oh, God. Yeah, that'd be the Yomi dog.
Bring the Yomi dog. We need to see the Yomi dog.
Want to see the Yomi dog?
The people need the Yomi dog.
She ran away. She's on alert.
Hi, how you doing, guys?
Doing well, man. Matey, thank you very much for setting us up.
Thank you very much for being a part of it. So, Yomi Ship is a three-piece instrumental psychedelic band from Perth with a penchant for really interesting songwriting and for unique playing techniques. And so far, I've released a quartet of compelling releases, including the eponymous Yomi Ship, Moods, Pyramids of 𝙎𝙤𝙘𝙖𝙨, and the most recent release of Agartha. So, what are you guys getting up to today? It looks like you're having a good afternoon.
Yeah, we're outside playing some cricket. No, if only. We just finished rehearsals. No, that's okay.
Cricket rehearsals. What's the difference?
Jam.
Oh, that's cool. Where do you guys normally do the jamming?
Well, it's from our folks' house actually. So where Jared's living at the moment, we've got our drum kit and most of our music gear set up there, and we've got a music room sort of dedicated to it. So it's soundproof, more or less, and it's free. So yeah, we just catch up. Yeah. Saving money, man. That's it.
Well, with the upcoming tour, a little bit of money wouldn't go astray. I've got a question for you three. Where does the name Yomi Ship come from?
It has sort of two meanings, I guess. One, the first obvious meaning is it's from a card game, Yu-Gi-Oh! So it's got a vague reference to that. It was kind of like my trump card that I used to use against my brothers. And the other sort of half of that is if you sort of translate it in sort of Japanese, Yomi kind of means land of the dead, and then ship would mean sort of like a vessel that carries the souls to the land of the dead from when they pass over. So it's kind of like got like a heavy explanation and then more of a comical one. So you can kind of take your pick.
There's it kind of reminds I'm a big Star Trek nerd, so it kind of reminds me of the Klingon Barge of the Dead. So I'm kind of imagining that.
Yeah, well, if you've seen, there's quite a few like Ghibli films that a lot of Japanese influence we sort of derive from that. But yeah, there's one other Japanese film. It's called The Children Who Chase Lost Voices, and that actually has a representation of what a Yomi Ship would be. So you can check it out there and sort of get that.
I'll edit in a still when I go back and have a look at it, because that does sound pretty interesting. So the next one's going to be a bit of an obvious question, but I'm kind of curious. Like, okay, so Nick, Jared, you guys are siblings. I guess the question is, how did you guys meet Jade, and how did that contribute to the start of the band?
I actually met Mal, their dad, first, and he invited me to their last show with their previous band. They were called Splinter. It was like rock sort of.
Yeah, like heavy rock, kind of alternative rock stuff. When we started that band when I was probably about 13 or 12. And we did that for a while during our school years. And then, yeah, the final show, the farewell show that we played, Jade was in the audience.
Yeah, and I just introduced myself at the end, and they contacted me probably like 6 months to a year later.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a period. Me and Jared were writing already, so we had to sort of develop what we wanted the style to be. And then once we felt comfortable, we sort of got back in touch with Jade.
Yeah, it was my first ever band, really. I was 15. So
no way.
Yeah.
Yeah, just seeing the live at Hopping Mouse and the Pyramids of, well, what is it again? 𝙎𝙤𝙘𝙖𝙨. That's it. Seeing that production, it doesn't seem like a first band project. Seems like all three of you have been at it for quite some. I mean, as a band, you've been at it for what, nearly 5 years now, something like that.
Yeah, 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah. What a heck of a first band to join. You guys are a very unusual band in the Australian music scene. It's one of the things that popped out to me the most. I mean, I like pretty much everything, but when I was just trolling through stuff, and I was either Sea Priest or Shaman first, it was one of those rare songs that I just kept on hitting back. I just kept on listening to again and again and again. I'm like, this reminds me so much of Francis the Mute, Mars Volta. Yes, please, just as much give. Yes. What is this band? Yomi Ship. Okay, let's listen to all this stuff. What is the inspiration for the group?
Yeah, it was a pretty natural transition from our previous band, Splinter. Me and Jared were starting to venture into listening to different stuff as well as playing. So that just was naturally occurring. And then, like I said, we started listening to different, a little bit more obscure, tricky timing, time signature type of stuff. And we knew that we wanted to go in that sort of direction. But as far as developing our own sound, I think we were both pretty consciously aware that we didn't want to just follow somebody else. We wanted to try and a new spin on it or like pave our own way. So we took elements from bands. I think when we first started up, I think the main influences were Tame Impala and Chon, right? Yeah, Tame Impala and Chon. So we kind of got the meat and the potatoes from those two bands, and then we kind of just filled gaps with other various projects. I mean, the Mars Volta is one of my favorite bands of all time, so that's where you might get the high five, man. You might get that the Francis vibes from that, but it's really us experiment. We're still experimenting at this stage. Like I would say, every release that we've put out, we've learned from. We've tried to do something different again. So this is really a taste of what is to come.
Yeah, on previous releases when compared to Agartha, like, were there any differences in the way that you would compose? Like, how would you normally go about it?
Yeah, it's sort of different, right? Yeah.
Really, yeah, it sort of depends on what we're listening to at the time. That's what we write. And we were listening to more heavy sort of stuff at the time, I suppose. So if you get those like lower, the Sugar,
the Contortionist, Tool, Carnival, and Nick likes a little like Limp Bizkit and stuff like that. A lot of new metal.
New kid back on the block with the rip.
Yeah, we throw it all in a big pot, man, and we just mix it together and get the end result. But there's a lot of stuff that doesn't even make it, So we do sort of pick and choose. We're a little bit selective about what makes it out into the world. I'm
kind of a little bemused that you mentioned Limp Bizkit. Have you guys ever heard of a guy called The Caretaker?
Oh no, I haven't.
No. 𝙎𝙤𝙘𝙖𝙨. Try saying that 10 times real fast.
Yeah.
The only reason I know that name so well now is when I was doing the podcast, I had to say that section so many times. Yeah, that song in particular reminded me a lot, like heaps, of section 6 of one of his albums, Everywhere at the End of Time, his final album. And that album explored what the transition of dementia was like. And there were some sections that were just like legit 40 minutes, 2 hours of just that long droning kind of submersion sound. A lot of it reminded me of that. So like, I guess, and you've done stuff like that on previous releases as well, right?
Yeah, we like to throw in like at least one or two, we call them like experimental interludes, or just like drone tracks, droney kind of, where we can just kind of go weird and forget about song structures and just have like more of like an experiment with it. So for example, that one, the 𝙎𝙤𝙘𝙖𝙨, that was like an experiment where I would do a piece, then Jade would do a piece, then Nick would do a piece, and then at the end, all three pieces come together.
How does being such a unique act in the Australian music scene affect the band? Like, is it a positive thing? Do you find it hard to fit in sometimes? Personally, I think, like, say, in the context of Monolith Festival, I think you guys are a perfect fit because you're not like anyone else, but you're not a sore thumb either. It's like you guys fit into that great, despite being so different.
Yeah, well, you pretty much hit the nail on the head there. It's like we're fairly flexible, really. So we in the past, we found ourselves on just straight up metal lineups. We've done just straight up indie pop lineups and things like that. So really, we sort of just change it up. Depends on what bands are kicking it at the moment, who's taking interest in us, or what our schedule is. We don't really limit ourselves to any specific genre. We try not to. We want to be approached by all sort of things. So yeah, as you said, we just want to try and keep it open. And we get the opportunity to play with a lot of different bands.
Feel that. I know you guys like to experiment a bit live. Does who you're playing with or the audience that you're playing to affect what you improvise?
Definitely. Yeah, I'd say so. Usually if we play like a heavier lineup, we'll definitely put in a lot more heavier songs in our set that we think people will like. And then, yeah, there are some shows where we would improvise a bit more than we normally would, where it's like more of like an experimental night, or we kind of, we try to make the set tailored towards whoever we think will be in the audience.
Just going back to Agartha for a moment, what's the press on that one been like?
Good. I think it was a long time in the making. We obviously had been sitting on it for a little period of time. For us personally, I think we were ready to see the songs kind of go and get out there. But it's been good. We received only positive feedback from pretty much everyone that's listened to it and spoken to us about it. I think it sort of capstones what we've been working on. What we've been saying to people is that some of the songs that are on that album were written through the previous release, the Yonaguni period. So again, it's songs that we had sort of been sitting on for a while that we kind of see as the end of that era or that chapter. It just kind of ties everything together. So yeah, it's nice to see it all finished and that people can kind of understand it for what it is, and then look forward to seeing what we do next.
Did you have any anxieties about the EP itself, like holding onto it for a little bit? I'm assuming because of the world situation that we're in at the moment, that you kept it aside, which, that's fair. Did you have any built-up anxieties about releasing and thinking about, you get it finished and then, a certain period of time finishes No one else has heard it yet. You still have the opportunity to make changes if you want to. Was that something that crept in?
I think we were just really keen to release it. Like, we postponed things so many times, and I just wanted it out of my head so we could write new stuff. Because like Nick said, we're sitting on those songs for so long, and recording it was quite a long process, and the mixing side of things. So it just we didn't really want to make any more changes.
Yeah, and we're not really ones for chasing perfection anyway, especially with like EP releases and things like that. We'd rather save our full dedication and focus for if it's to be a full-length album or whatever. Everything that we've done so far, we've just tried to get some sort of a common release going, sort of thing, just to keep it flowing.
What I find most fascinating is your willingness to expand upon the format of a typical band, especially with the Pyramids live performance. There was interpretive dancing. It was in the theater. There was wash with projected visuals. That was really so much fun to watch, and also the Hopping Mouse recording. And you guys look so, considering what you're playing, how you're playing it, you guys look so natural while you're doing it. You can pull it off live as if it's second nature. You've had to develop that after a while, but is there a hidden language, so to speak, while you're playing, or is it just you're well rehearsed, you know what you're doing?
It's a good question. Yeah, I don't know. We actually don't rehearse a whole lot. So a lot of our sort of communication is unspoken. It might be a visual cue, like a nod or like a blink, or like I'll open my eyes like really wide or something like that.
Especially with the mask.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think?
Some things we'll pre-plan before the show, and then other things we'll leave up to improvisation, and we'll wing it or figure it out on the night. But yeah, if it's in the spur of the moment, it is like obviously unverbal. It's on the stage. It's in the moment. It's like got to go now, sort of thing. So we just trust each other. I think that's it. We're very fortunate that we've got kind of like this chemistry, unspoken chemistry between the three of us.
Absolutely, and that's something that was prevalent in those live videos that I mentioned. I would notice oftentimes if you're getting into a groove on drums, you would kind of chug away at it. Jade would occasionally just glance over, see what you're doing, would kind of know, I'm going to write this for a while. I did notice you guys checking in on each other as you were playing, but only when there was like a big change coming up, and I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Anytime there's like a big change coming up, we all like rely on each other to give ourselves cues, like we're ready to go into it. Because, sometimes one of us might go, no, not yet. And like we have to keep going on that section for a little bit longer. So it is really heavily relying on cues.
Especially with your playing as well. I notice, especially when you're playing, you get lost in what you're playing. And so much fun to watch. Like, Nick is just a clock, basically. Jared, it just looks like you're kind of hypnotized a little bit. Like, I mean that in a good way. Like, you're just kind of lost in what you're playing.
No, thank you. That means appreciate that. Man. Yeah, truthfully, though, I'm more so daydreaming about something else. Yeah, and truthfully though, Jade's the clock. She holds everything down.
Oh, no.
So it's usually the drummer's job, but we give that to Jade in this case.
Well, you guys feed off each other really, really well. Taking another step back for a moment, all three of you display strong musical influences in your playing, note choices, technique. I guess, Nick, we'll start off with you. This is a question for each of you, but we'll start off with Nick. What inspired you to play the way that you play?
I'm self-taught, so that might have something to do with it as well. So I watch a lot of drummers, and then obviously I take different techniques from them and then reshape it to what works for me. That's the nature of self-taught. So there's always going to be that element of like quirkiness or uniqueness that is a little bit sketchy. And then I guess it's just that personal drive. So I watch, obviously, like I said, I watch a lot of drummers, and I look up to a lot of drummers, and I obviously want to become one of the greats. And the only way to do that is to push yourself and keep making you believe that you've got to get to that stage or whatever. So it's just a constant drive, I think, to want to get better, and then watching other drummers that I respect and then trying to put myself on that same level, I guess. It's unhealthy. Can be unhealthy, but it worked for me as a strong motivator.
Some call it madness, others call it dedication. Well, who's your who would be one of your influences?
Any drummer from the Mars Volta, man. You could just name any of them, but like pretty much John or Pridgen. Like I respect Pridgen just because he goes, and then John, he's got a little bit more of a groove happening. So you can just take something from everyone. But yeah, I think when I was listening to Mars Volta, that was probably the biggest push that I ever got to get good, was watching live videos off the Mars Volta and realizing they had something special, and then I wanted that for Yomi Ship, so that I had to push myself to get to that level. So it's all connected.
Well, Jared, same question.
I don't know, really. I guess there was a point after that previous band when going into Yomi Ship where I kind of thought of like approaching guitar more from like a sound kind of soundscapes point of view rather than like a technicality point of view, I guess, because I wasn't really fussed about, people watching me and watching how fast my fingers are, like doing any solos or stuff. I wanted to more do it like where people would kind of close their eyes and just listen to the guitar. It'd like take them to like a different place, or like it doesn't even sound like a guitar even kind of thing. And just being able to make music that's unpredictable as well was one of my big driving forces. I listened to a lot of a band called 𝙎𝙤𝙘𝙖𝙨. Yeah, I remember listening to them and just thinking like, I had no idea what section was going to come up next, and I just thought it was so cool and interesting. So since listening to them, I've just always been obsessed with unpredictable kind of weird-sounding chords and sections.
On the subject of hiatus, Napalm's playing and her singing. In a band full of unique characters, she's a unique character, which says a lot, right?
Yeah, I agree. Jade is like the biggest hiatus band ever.
Yeah.
So
Definitely inspired me as well. It's sort of hard for me to say because these two are like extremely musical, like everything that happens in their life is music, basically. Whereas recently, especially, I've sort of, I don't know, not put it on the back burner, but it's not like my complete priority, I suppose.
Jade's super smart. Yeah, she's focusing on finishing her uni degree at the moment. So
yeah, so my main practice is at rehearsal. I sort of just come up with things then. But yeah, I guess my actual playing is quite inspired by like artists I'm listening to at the time. And like I think a lot of bass players start off on guitar, whereas I just like went straight into bass. So that like helps with my technique and everything, I suppose.
We're also
yeah. I got like lessons when I was younger, but
I'm primarily a bass player, and can I say for the record that I guess you would call it the chorus motif in Sea Priest is one of my favorite bass lines ever, especially in context with what Nick and Jared are doing.
I've definitely expanded my pedal collection as well.
Yeah, you guys are very technologically inclined, like early Mars Volta.
That's right. Yep. Yeah. We just need a fourth member now. So a lot of people always ask us if we're chasing a singer or looking for another band member. And musically, the three of us, I think we're still trying to figure stuff out as well. So that's probably not a thing. But if we ever were to take on another member, it would maybe be someone who could do stuff from out the front, do some sort of post-production or something like that, which is what the Mars Volta had. But for now, it's just relying on visual effects. So we usually have some sort of visual effects or incense running at our shows and things like that, just to try and take it that one step further.
It's cool that you guys do that. Like watching the Pyramids live production, I just thought this is just amazing. See, watching Hopping Mouse, I remember thinking this is a three-piece. Like how? You guys don't sound like a three-piece at all. And even watching it, it's kind of just disbelief, especially with what you're doing, Nick, on drums. Actually, this is something that all three of you do. You all use the stereo spectrum to your advantage with whatever you're doing, and especially with what sections that you're playing. And for someone like me, that's just magic. So you bet. You got a few events coming up. The New Year's show, the Hallelujah Festival. You got the Pliny supports, and you're going on the nationwide tour as part of Monolith. And from my perspective, well, as I said before, the band is so different to anybody else that's playing on the bill, but still able to fit in so well. What are your thoughts about playing the festival, and is there anything in particular that you're most looking forward to?
Catching up with the boys, the Carnival boys, our friends. Yeah, they're our friends. Yeah. No, I think it is, yeah. One of the biggest things we are looking forward to is probably hanging out with Carnival again, because we did do that too. Well, we did a bunch of shows with them a couple of years back. We did like maybe 5 shows in a row with them, and we got to hang out a lot and just like catch up and talk. So we're pretty keen to catch up with them again and meet all the other bands as well. Like we're all big fans of Hog and everyone like that. So we're really looking forward to meeting all the other bands and chatting with them and just hanging out backstage and vibing and getting back over east as well.
Yeah, touring for the first time. Apart from when we went to Adelaide, this will be my first time in general over east.
Yeah, Jade's never been over east.
I've been to Queensland, but not like Melbourne or Sydney. So,
well, I'm kind of hoping to see you guys at Monolith Festival. There's a reason why I'm scratching my forehead with a camera lens. It would be cool it would be cool to watch the show. It'd be even better to help out more with media and stuff like that. And seeing you guys republish part of the review that I wrote, I was at work at the time when that happened. I've just put myself on mute. I've just gone, back into my room and my housemate's like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, they republished my review as part of the EPK. I love them.
No,
We really appreciate it.
yeah, honestly, it's like the type of review that we really wanted to see because we've never really gotten like a track by track review before, and there's so much thought put into it that we all read it and we showed everyone around us what all the words that you said about it. And it just really made our day, so we couldn't wait to share it. Yeah, we find it hard to put into words how to explain our song, so it's helpful to come from an unbiased perspective and see what somebody else.
I was definitely biased. I listened to that. I listened to the EP and probably Pyramids at least 3 or 4 times by the time I wrote it. I did struggle writing it because I'm just like, how do I get this into like 600 or 700 words? It's not doing any justice, and I'm glad you appreciated it. What do you guys see as the highlight of your career at this point in time?
Probably collectively speaking, that Carnival Tour that we did.
That was pretty unreal.
It was, super surreal. When we saw all the email confirmations come through and we were actually getting in touch with their management and things like that, that was something special. Yeah, it was like the first time that we'd ever been in contact with someone that was like so famous, I guess you could say, and just like really well known in the style of music that we play. Like Carnival's the biggest prog rock band in Australia. So to be able to get like a personal email from their manager is just so cool to see. We always still talk about it.
Popping Mouse. What was the impetus behind that?
Yeah, that was like our version of the 𝙎𝙤𝙘𝙖𝙨 kind of studio session. So we all really love this band called Black Midi. They are really good. So they released their 𝙎𝙤𝙘𝙖𝙨 home performance, and that was like the first time that they played all their new songs and everything like that. We watched them like, oh yeah, new Black Midi, we cannot wait. So like we kind of wanted to do the same thing because it was so fun to watch, and we watched it all each so many times. So we can do the same thing and play a bunch of new songs as well, and people who like us as much as we like Black Midi will get a really good treat. So that was the idea behind it.
It was actually kind of cool in the sense that it was like watching you guys have a conversation with your instruments, and also like, taking turns in like, stepping away musically to kind of noodle or do whatever it is that you were going to do. And in particular, I was again super impressed with Jade's playing. I normally when I play bass, I hit like way too freaking hard, but seeing how gentle you were with it, but also getting the articulations and stuff, was just like, wow, I've got to adjust my technique, it seems. But also, the stereo spread, you bet. But also, as I said before, the stereo spread that you guys were employing in that production, it seemed like there was a lot more than let's just set up our gear and play some songs.
Well, I mean, that pretty much was how it was. We would just set up and play our songs, and the rest of it would figure itself out. I mean, we've touched on it before, but the addition of like pedals for both Jade and Jared, they just accumulate more. I'm probably the only one that hasn't delved into technology. Everything that I do is still acoustically driven through the drum kit, through natural tones and things. So there was a little bit of post-production, but I don't think it was too much, was there? No, not really. A lot of it did just come down to us setting up and playing. So it's kind of cool to receive feedback, But yeah, it's fairly natural. Yeah, the way that we did that video, the Hoppy Mouse one, was the same way that we recorded our first EP, the one under the same name. In the same room, amps in the same room. We didn't even have the amps in a separate room. We had all the amps in the same room, but just like boxed off by all these panels. And we just put it the exact same way we did the Hoppy Mouse video. We just played from start to finish, no overdub.
Yeah, that's pretty stressful.
It can be pretty stressful.
Also getting it just so right from the bat. You guys are just super talented. It's so fun to watch. Like, no, you're not jumping off amps, you're not smashing basses or guitars or anything like that. Nick, when you rip into it, okay, with the mask and everything else like that, that's kind of badass. You don't look like statues while you're playing. It's really different and hard to explain, but really fun to watch.
Oh, I respect that. Yeah, that means a lot. In the beginning days, we used to struggle with that, I would say. We used to struggle with not standing still. Oh yeah, and we used to, because we're all very shy people. So we don't like to, express ourselves like with much movement. We like to do it for all the music. So it's good that it's nice to hear that you can pick up on.
You don't look nervous or anything while you're playing. You're confident while you're playing. There's a fine line between being so nervous that you can't kind of do anything while you're playing and you're just kind of paralyzed, between being so relaxed and so into what you're doing that people will enjoy what they're seeing or enjoy what they're hearing. It doesn't really seem to phase you that much, except for Nick, which when he rips into it, I mean, it might be just a mixture of how he's playing, the intensity he's playing, and how he's moving across the kit that naturally lends itself to an active performance. But if anything, that just helps to punctuate the band's live presence.
It's interesting because obviously, being the drummer, you're putting a lot of physical exertion into what I'm doing, right? Whereas the others aren't. I guess it's not as demanding physically, but we try not to put any one person in the spotlight for too long. We don't assume anyone's the captain or the leader of the band. Every time we write music, we're very conscious of giving each other space and not stepping on each other's toes and things like that. So when I'm off doing my thing, to me, that's just the same as if Jared and Jade were doing their thing. I'm not putting any extra musical ability or anything into it. I might be physically working harder, but I'm producing the same result that Jared and Jade would if they were given their time.
Absolutely.
So
I agree with that.
Obviously, yeah, because it's just based on the instrument, I would, as far as I'm concerned. So
thank you so much for taking the time to have a chat, and it's been a pleasure getting to know you guys a little more. Can't wait to see you when you're down here.
You too, all right? We'll see you around. Thank you, buddy. See ya.
Is that an ice cream truck?
That is our wind chime. Oh, yeah, we're outside. So.
I thought there was like an ice cream truck going past.
I wish.